Welcome to part 4 of my Masters Reimagined series, where I dive into the work of the great masters and reinterpret their technique in my own way. This time we're focusing on J.M.W. Turner, a master of light, atmosphere, and dramatic landscapes. What really drew me to Turner was his ability to capture the essence of a moment, the light, the mood, and the movement in the atmosphere. Turner didn't just paint landscapes, he painted the feeling of the air, the wind, the water, and the sky. His works have a sense of fluidity that connects with me, especially as I experiment with watercolor and embrace the spontaneity of the medium. Before we dive into my painting process, I want to share a few books I've borrowed from the library to help guide my journey as I study Turner. These books have been instrumental in shaping my approach to his work, and I highly recommend them to anyone interested in learning more about his techniques and life. For the Portrait Reimagined series, I usually pick 2 studies followed by 1 portrait of the master that I'm working on in his style combined with my own style. And this time around it was very difficult because I do love Turner's work, but what narrowed it down a bit was the fact that selecting his watercolor works, because that kind of narrows it down naturally. And so I kind of picked a few here, but I think this one, the Blue Rigi, I don't know how to pronounce it, Sunrise 1842. I really love this artwork by him. What I really love about Turner's work is that kind of like haziness, and this definitely portrays that. I have to kind of figure out what blues he used, so that would be the start of the study because I'm really into colors. I did look at that other book that I really love, which I'm thinking about sharing all the books that I love that's in my bookshelf that are very precious for me. So yeah, I might share that in another video. But anyhow, I really love this work. Been to Switzerland before, so this was during the time that he was going out in his travels, because after the Napoleonic War, the borders opened, so he was free to kind of travel around. So he was traveling quite a lot. He was quite ambitious in that way, a natural explorer. So I really love this one, but you can see that these right here, I think he used Van Dyke Brown, not too sure, or sepia, but these really stand out because they're very bold with the color. So the contrast between this is kind of like balancing the painting itself, because you kind of look at this as it's the focal point, but these on the side, the birds and the boat, kind of like balances the whole composition of the work, and I really love it. And so I'm going to work on this one for my first study, and then I am still kind of wondering what to do with this one, but I really love this. This is called A River Seen from a Hill, 1840-5, oil paint on canvas. The only problem I would say, because I'm mainly using watercolor, it will be very difficult to get that brush strokes, like that oiliness of the brush strokes. I might even use the pastels for this, because I recently got oil pastels from the Caran d'Ache, as well as I have the Sennelier, so I might work on that. And then for the final painting, I want to somehow incorporate this snowstorm. He used the vortex. He was really into like creating this vortex effect that nobody else quite did at the time. So you can see that it's kind of swirling. The way he creates that effect is by making it dark here, making it very light here, making it dark here. So the focal or the area of interest is right here. So I like to create that somehow, but I really love this oil painting by him. And I don't see it in any other books. I don't know why. So this was bought in Germany when I went to his exhibition there while I was living in Munich, which is called Beach at Calais, I think Calais, Fisher Woman Collecting Bait. And I really love the use of the colors, the blues, the grays, obviously Turner, and the yellows right here, with the very peachy orange here and very bright Turnery transparent pearl orange looking right here that spreads out. It almost does create this vortex effect, but I like to use this landscape and maybe with Turner's like portrait at the end. So that's what I'm kind of visualizing, but I don't know how it'll turn out. It's also about my feelings and where I go, so I want to be open to my intuition and the spontaneity of it all. I totally forgot to share this. I don't know if like YouTube will kick me out of here, but anyways, Turner's Secret Sketches. So it was funny, while I was like studying a bit about Turner and his like life in general, funny story, when he passed away, the person who was taking care of his affairs basically wanted to make sure that Turner gets into basically the prestigious artist. I mean, he was already, but he could have degraded his name out there because he was living with a widow who was 20 years younger than him, and nobody really knew about his life, like his personal life was very secretive. So people would have like kind of looked down upon him if those things got out in the public. So this person who was taking care of all his things after he passed away found these nude, very erotic sketches, and basically it was like, oh my god, we gotta like get rid of these or make sure it doesn't go out to the public. But anyways, this came out, so I found it very interesting. I was like, I don't know about these nude erotic sketches of Turner, so I was very curious. I looked it up online and there were a couple there, so you can check it out, but I've never obviously seen these in his exhibitions, even at this age of like where things are quite open. But anyways, I found this book very interesting. Some are just like, really? That's Turner's work? And and Turner's Erotica. Now, this is where it starts. Okay, so let's go through it. I'm just gonna show you a couple. It goes through the influences and whatnot. So I'm sure like this one, he's got these models to actually be okay with him like sketching them. Who knows who they are? I mean, this doesn't even look like his work. I don't see Turner really like painting figures. Like he does them very tiny in some artworks, but I mean this one, it's like, wow, okay, this was in action. When I saw this, I was like, okay, that is something. It says the amorous nymph and satyr. 2 studies of sexual activity. 2 studies of sexual activity. So, I mean, this must have been like, yeah, this must have been happening right in front of them. I mean, how could he even do that, you know? So, yeah, a lot is going on here. I just love looking into how people's lives must have been. And obviously, Turner is one of the great masters of the time. And he's kind of pushed out, like people want to know about him, so these things are coming out. But I'm sure he was just one of many, you know. People must have like lived a similar life like he had. Regardless of these things coming out, I think he had to have this kind of part of his life. Like he had to be lucid, is that even a word? Like, you know, liquid in any form of way to be creative. We know a bit more of your life. Sorry, Turner, but yeah, but it's interesting to know all these parts of Turner. So I've done the Blue Riggy Sunrise, and I want to share my thoughts on it and the process of what I've done here. So I'm overall like maybe 70% happy, not 100% obviously. First, I tinted the whole paper using this Schmincke Volcano Yellow all around where it was kind of like yellow. And then I went in with mahogany brown and the desert green around here to create this mountain and this distinction between the mountain and the land and the lake. And then next I went into the mountain. Now with the mountain I used mostly Prussian blue and French ultramarine. The mountain is the number one bit I'm not happy with because obviously there were blocks of different shapes of values and colors within the mountain itself. Like you could see the quinacridone, well, like a pinkish tinted, very light tip right here that definitely separated with the blue, and there was a pinkish side right here, probably where the sunrise was hitting the riggy a bit. So this was pink, and there's no distinction really between certain areas. I kind of put in this desert green right here to like separate it, but then I haven't quite got the mountain right. There should be more different values between and shapes, but the problem was that a lot of them was blurred lines, like lost lines with very definitive contour of the mountains. So it was a mixture of that, which made it very difficult to replicate. So I would change how I would have tackled the mountain, definitely. And then I went in with Prussian blue and the French ultramarine. I went over some of these top bits of the skies, as well as some of the mahogany came into the skies as well right here. And then I went in with Van Dyke brown, mixed with mahogany, and at times I mixed the Payne's gray that I use here in neutral tint to make it darker. But what I would change is just sticking with the Prussian blue and the Van Dyke brown for these areas that I just mentioned. I wouldn't have used the neutral tint or the Payne's gray to go darker. These two mixture would have been enough. And then I went in with the white right here at the star. I probably maybe would have used what Turner did, which was using like a knife to scratch at it. So maybe I'll try that for the next piece, we'll see. And also, I've realized how much texture he has. So obviously he has a lot of blurriness in his painting, which is the wet on wet technique. But these right here in the front, where he wanted a bit of like eyes to go to the mountain and then follow up here, were very bold and basically dry brush techniques. So that was kind of fun doing, and I realized how much texture there is in the skies. So it's just not plain blue, but it's a mix of colors that were used at the bottom here, and also a mix of grays, and also a mix of that blurred wet on wet technique with the dry brush technique to create those texture. And the textures are even curved. So we go back to that vortex that I was talking about earlier, where he did that storm, shipwreck in a storm or something. I forgot the name of the painting. You could see the vortex like that. It's always like a bit of a curve in the skies with the textures, as well as the landscape right here, where it distinguishes between the land and the sky and the lake and the mountains. It's like curved, and even within the lake things were curved, you know, the lines were curved. So I found that quite interesting. It was more evident when I try to do my studies here. I'm gonna call myself done because the more I'm working on this piece, like nothing's changing really. So I think I have to call it a day. Now, so I would say out of the 3 masters that I've done that were John Singer Sargent, Botticelli, and Van Gogh, this one, working on Turner, came more naturally. This is the thing with masters. Things can look simple, like, oh yeah, I can do that, but they're not really. So yeah, there are bits that I didn't quite work well with that. This was my second oil pastel work that I've done that was specifically using only oil pastels, and it was very difficult. There's always a learning curve, I know, so I'm not quite happy with this piece. And this final one, what didn't quite work was because with these masters, there are people from way back when taking a photo wasn't like a thing, and maybe photography didn't even exist, so it's very difficult to get the actual close-up photography of these artists. So what I did find was this is a drawing that's also a 20-pound note in England. So I thought, oh, this was probably the most closest what Turner looked. So I chosen this, but the problem is that it didn't come with the top bit, so I don't know how his head looked like. So I had to kind of almost like fade it out, and yeah, so that didn't quite work. It doesn't really look finished per se, but I think I got the feel of the clouds, and I'm close enough to this painting, which is the Callus Sands at Lower Water, Pissards Collecting Bait. So this is the painting I love from Turner. It's my favorite painting, and I think I relatively got it close to what it looks like. But man, if you want to get really close to what Turner's works look like, I think the main key is basically using very bright colors, but also the grays that it can create by mixing the complements. So here I've used a lot of Prussian blue, as well as French ultramarine, as well as the Smalt by Dumont's Blue. That's my favorite color, and it's from Winsor & Newton a bit. And I've also actually, out of these, I also added Quinacridone Coral by Daniel Smith. That's not here, but anyway, so that was a few that I added, as well as Buff Titanium, which is not here. So there are specific colors that I use to get like that Turner feel. I really enjoyed it. I think the key is just creating those grays, mixing in those grays to get the real feel of the clouds. I think it was the most comfortable one that I've done so far because, the Van Gogh painting at the end didn't quite, it turned out like a unicorn hippie party. So yeah, but anyways, I'll see you in the next video.